Welcome back everyone to the channel where everyday coins turn into extraordinary stories and hidden details become life-changing discoveries, and today we dive into a fascinating, controversial, and endlessly discussed tale from modern American coinage that has captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and curious viewers around the world, because we are talking about the legendary 2015 P5 cent coin, a coin that on the surface looks ordinary, spends like loose change, and passes unnoticed through millions of hands, yet in stories, rumors, theoretical scenarios, and collector speculation has been linked to an astonishing potential value reaching as high as $13 million, not because it was made of gold or silver, not because it was intentionally rare, but because of a complex web of alleged errors, production mistakes, transitional possibilities, mint anomalies, quality control failures, and extraordinary coincidences that together create a perfect storm of numismatic intrigue. And to understand why such a modern nickel could even be whispered about in the same sentence as multi-million-dollar rarities, we need to slowly and carefully explore how modern coins are made, how errors occur, how rarity is sometimes born accidentally rather than by design, and how the smallest deviation from perfection can transform 5 cents into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because the 2015 P5 cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a period of intense production demand, evolving mint technology, and ongoing changes in die preparation, plating processes, and quality control systems, and while millions upon millions of nickels were produced that year with no issues at all, collectors believe that a handful may have escaped the mint bearing combinations of errors so extreme and so unusual that if verified, authenticated, and confirmed by top grading services, they could theoretically rival the most famous error coins in history. And one of the most discussed possibilities begins with die errors, because dies are the engraved metal tools that stamp the design onto blank planchets, and if a die is improperly hardened, overused, misaligned, or damaged during production, it can transfer those flaws directly onto every coin it strikes, leading to doubled features, distorted lettering, ghost images, missing details, or strange surface textures. And in the case of the 2015 P5 cent, some collectors claim the existence of dramatic double dies affecting Jefferson's portrait, the inscriptions, or Monticello on the reverse, but not the common machine doubling seen on countless modern coins, rather a true hub doubling created during the die-making process itself, which would mean the design was impressed twice at slightly different angles before the die was ever used, creating strong, rounded doubling that is visible without magnification and consistent across the coin, and if such a double die were extreme, unlisted, and unique to a tiny number of surviving examples, its value could skyrocket, especially if combined with other errors on the same piece, because rarity compounds value in numismatics, and another layer of intrigue comes from planchet errors, because before a coin is struck, the blank metal disc must meet precise specifications for weight, thickness, diameter, and composition, and if something goes wrong earlier in the process, the resulting coin can be wildly different from anything intended. And for the 2015 P5 cent, speculation includes the possibility of off-metal strikes, such as a nickel struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another year's experimental alloy, and while such occurrences are extremely rare in modern minting, history proves they are not impossible, as documented cases exist of cents struck on dime planchets, quarters struck on foreign blanks, and coins struck on test metals never meant to leave the mint. And if a 2015 P nickel were struck on the wrong metal, especially one with a unique or transitional composition, it could instantly become one of the most important modern error coins ever found, and weight discrepancies would be the first clue, with the coin feeling unusually light or heavy in the hand, followed by color differences, magnetic properties, and edge anomalies, all of which would need to be carefully examined by experts. And then there are strike errors, which occur at the moment the coin is actually struck, and these include off-center strikes where the design is partially missing, broad strikes where the collar fails and the coin spreads outward, multiple strikes where the coin is hit more than once in different positions, and even spectacular cases where the coin is struck through grease, debris, cloth, or other foreign material, leaving parts of the design missing or distorted in ways that look almost artistic. And while minor strike errors are fairly common and usually only worth small premiums, an extreme and visually dramatic strike error on a 2015 P5 cent, especially if combined with other anomalies like a wrong planchet or double die, could elevate it into a category where collectors are willing to pay astonishing sums, because uniqueness and eye appeal are powerful forces in the market, and some theories go even further, suggesting the possibility of mule coins, which occur when obverse and reverse dies from two different coins are accidentally paired together, creating a hybrid that was never meant to exist. And while no confirmed 2015 Five Cent mule has been publicly documented, the mere possibility fuels excitement, because known mules from other years have sold for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, and if a modern nickel were discovered bearing a mismatched design, it would instantly become a headline-making rarity. And beyond physical errors, there is also the realm of die varieties and subtle anomalies that only appear under close inspection, such as missing mint marks, repunched elements, die cracks that form unusual patterns, cuts where parts of the die break away entirely, and clash marks where dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring parts of one design onto the other. And while many of these are minor curiosities, an extreme example that dramatically alters the appearance of the coin can generate intense collector demand, especially if it tells a clear story of what went wrong inside the minting process. And then there is the idea of transitional errors, which occur during periods when the mint is changing materials, designs, or processes, and although the nickel's basic composition has remained relatively stable, any undocumented test runs, experimental treatments, or leftover materials from previous projects could theoretically result in a coin that does not match official specifications, and history shows that such coins sometimes escape unnoticed for years before being recognized, authenticated, and celebrated. And the market psychology surrounding such discoveries plays a massive role in value, because once a coin is recognized as unique or nearly unique, competition among wealthy collectors can drive prices far beyond what logic alone would suggest, especially if the coin becomes famous, appears in major auctions, and is discussed widely in numismatic media. And this is where the $13 million figure enters the conversation, not as a guaranteed or even established price, but as a speculative upper extreme that combines the theoretical maximum rarity, the most dramatic combination of errors, pristine condition, and the emotional excitement of owning something that should not exist, because condition matters just as much as rarity. And a flawless example preserved in mint state with original luster will always command far more than a worn or damaged one, even if the underlying error is the same. And in the modern era, authentication and grading are absolutely critical, because the market will not accept extraordinary claims without extraordinary proof, and any 2015 Five Cent believed to possess such value would need to be examined by top-tier grading services using advanced tools, including weight analysis, metal composition testing, die matching, and microscopic examination, to rule out post-mint damage, alterations, or outright counterfeits, because the higher the claimed value, the greater the scrutiny. And this scrutiny is not meant to discourage discovery but to protect the integrity of the hobby, ensuring that genuine rarities are recognized and preserved while false claims are filtered out. And for everyday viewers and collectors watching right now, the real excitement lies in the idea that modern coins are not boring, not fully explored, and not immune to mystery, because even in an age of automation and precision engineering, human oversight, machine wear, and process complexity can still produce astonishing results. And while the odds of finding a $13 million nickel are incredibly small, the thrill of checking your change, examining a coin under a magnifying glass, and learning to recognize what makes something truly special is part of what makes coin collecting so addictive and rewarding, because every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story is about perfection, but other times it is about mistakes, accidents, and moments when the system failed just enough to create something extraordinary. And whether or not such a legendary 2015 Five Cent truly exists exactly as imagined, the conversation itself highlights how value in numismatics is born from a combination of rarity, error, history, condition, and human fascination, reminding us that even the smallest denomination can carry enormous potential, and that hidden treasures may still be waiting in jars, drawers, and pockets, ready to challenge our assumptions and ignite our imagination the moment we look a little closer. Next. 2006 Five Cent, Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating modern coin legends ever discussed in the numismatic world, the mysterious and highly debated 2006 P5 cent, a coin that many people have held, spent, ignored, or tossed into jars without a second thought, yet a coin that in rare and extraordinary circumstances has been linked through theory, speculation, advanced error analysis, and collector fascination to a staggering potential value of $12 million, not because it was intentionally rare, not because it was made of precious metal, but because of a complex chain of errors, mistakes, production anomalies, and once-in-a-generation possibilities that could transform a simple nickel into one of the most valuable modern coins imaginable. And to truly understand how such a value could even be whispered about, we must step slowly into the world of modern minting, error formation, collector psychology, and the delicate balance between accident and rarity. Because the 2006 P5 cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during the Westward Journey series era, a period when the U.S. Mint was producing nickels at massive volumes while also dealing with design changes, die experimentation, increased public interest, and intense production pressure, and whenever production increases and timelines tighten, the opportunity for mistakes also increases. And although the Mint employs strict quality control, history has proven again and again that no system is flawless, and that sometimes the smallest failure at the wrong moment can create a numismatic anomaly that defies expectation. And one of the most discussed and foundational possibilities behind the immense value theory of the 2006 P5 cent begins with double die errors, because double dies are not simple mechanical slips but originate during the die creation process itself, when the hub impresses the design onto the die more than once at slightly different angles or positions, resulting in strong, rounded, clearly separated doubling that is part of the design rather than damage after the fact. And for a 2006 P5 cent, a dramatic double die affecting Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, or the architectural details could instantly elevate the coin into elite error status, especially if the doubling were bold enough to be seen without magnification and consistent across multiple design elements, and the value would increase exponentially if such a double die were previously unknown, unlisted, and limited to an extremely small number of surviving examples, because rarity combined with visibility is a powerful force in collector demand. And moving beyond double dies, planchet errors represent another major category of potential value, because before a coin is ever struck, the blank metal disc must be cut, rolled, annealed, cleaned, and inspected. And any deviation during these steps can produce a planchet that does not meet official specifications, and in rare cases, such a planchet can still make its way into the striking chamber, resulting in a coin that should not exist. And for the 2006 P5 cent, collectors have long speculated about the possibility of off-metal strikes, such as a nickel struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, a foreign coin, or even an experimental or leftover alloy. And while such events are extremely rare in modern minting, they are not impossible, as documented cases from other years have shown. Coins struck on dime, cent, or foreign blanks escaping the mint unnoticed, and if a 2006 P nickel were discovered on a wrong planchet with confirmed composition differences, unique weight, and unmistakable characteristics, it could instantly become a headline rarity, and its value would be further amplified if the metal were unusual, transitional, or undocumented, because collectors place immense importance on coins that reveal unknown chapters of mint history. And then there are striking errors, which occur at the moment of impact when the dies press the design into the planchet, and these include off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, broad strikes where the retaining collar fails and the coin expands outward, multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once in misaligned positions, and dramatic struck-through errors where grease, debris, cloth, or other foreign material interferes with the strike, leaving areas of missing or distorted design. And while many minor strike errors are relatively common and command modest premiums, an extreme and visually stunning strike error on a 2006 P5 cent, especially one that clearly illustrates a rare mechanical failure, can command enormous attention, and attention often translates into value, particularly when a coin is visually unmistakable and tells a compelling story without explanation. And even more exciting is the theoretical possibility of mule errors, which occur when an obverse die from one coin is paired with a reverse die from an entirely different coin, creating a hybrid that was never intended to exist. and while no confirmed mule involving a 2006 P5 cent has been publicly authenticated, the existence of other modern mules proves that such mistakes can happen, and if a nickel were found bearing an incompatible or mismatched reverse, the numismatic world would erupt with excitement, because mule coins are among the most dramatic and valuable errors ever produced. And then there are die varieties and progressive die failures, including die cracks, retained cuds, full cuds where part of the die breaks away completely, and clash marks where the dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring parts of one design onto the other. And while many die cracks are minor and common, a massive retained cud or full cud that dramatically alters the appearance of the coin can be both rare and highly desirable, particularly if it occurs late in the die's life, and only affects a small number of coins before the die is retired. And the 2006 P5 cent, produced during a time of heavy demand, could theoretically host such late-stage die failures that slipped past inspection, and transitional errors add yet another layer of possibility, because transitional errors occur when materials, designs, or processes are in flux. And although the nickel's core composition remained stable, the westward journey era involved changes in die design, engraving techniques, and production logistics, and any undocumented overlap, test run, or leftover material could create an anomaly that defies official records, and history has shown that some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were not known to exist until decades after they were minted, hidden in collections or circulation because no one knew what to look for at the time. And condition plays a massive role in determining ultimate value, because even the rarest error can lose significant worth if heavily worn or damaged, while a pristine example preserved in mint state with full luster, sharp details, and no post-mint damage can multiply value many times over. And this is especially true for modern-era coins, where high-grade examples are far scarcer than circulated ones due to handling and lack of early recognition, and authentication is the final gatekeeper between speculation and reality, because extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and any 2006 P5 cent believed to approach a value of $12 million would need to undergo exhaustive examination by top-tier grading and authentication services, including precise weight measurement, metallurgical analysis, die study comparisons, and microscopic inspection to rule out alterations, damage, or counterfeit fabrication, because the higher the potential value, the greater the incentive for deception, and the stricter the scrutiny becomes, and the idea of a $12 million nickel is not presented as a promise but as a theoretical ceiling, a convergence point where extreme rarity, dramatic error combination, perfect condition, and intense collector competition collide, because value in numismatics is not fixed but shaped by human desire, historical significance, and the stories we tell about objects. And when a coin becomes famous, when it is discussed, debated, photographed, written about, and showcased, it gains an aura that goes beyond metal and design, transforming it into a cultural artifact. And for viewers watching right now, the deeper lesson is that modern coins are not boring, not fully explored, and not immune to mystery, because even in an era of advanced automation and laser-precise machinery, human oversight, machine wear, and process complexity can still produce astonishing results. And while the odds of finding such a legendary 2006 P5 cent are incredibly slim, the excitement lies in the possibility, the knowledge that treasures are not limited to ancient times or precious metals, but can exist quietly in modern change, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely, learn the signs, and ask the right questions, because every coin carries a story, and sometimes that story is about perfection, but sometimes it is about mistakes, accidents, and moments when the system failed just enough to create something extraordinary, reminding us that even 5 cents can hold the power to change lives, spark imagination, and turn curiosity into discovery. Next, 2003 P5 cent coin. Today we are stepping into one of the most fascinating modern coin legends ever imagined, discussed, and debated among collectors, treasure hunters, and numismatic thinkers, the story of the 2003 P5 cent, a coin that most people have spent without a second thought, a coin that has passed through countless hands, cash registers, and coin jars, yet a coin that under rare, extreme, and extraordinary circumstances has been associated in theory and speculation with a mind-blowing potential value of $11 million, not because it was meant to be rare, not because it was struck in gold or silver, but because of a powerful combination of errors, mistakes, production anomalies, transitional possibilities, and once-in-a-generation conditions that could elevate an ordinary nickel into legendary status. And to truly understand how such a value could even be imagined, we must first understand the environment in which the 2003 P5 cent was created, because it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a time of massive production demand, evolving mint technology, heightened efficiency targets, and an era when quality control relied on speed as much as precision. And whenever millions upon millions of coins are produced under pressure, the possibility for small mistakes increases, and while most errors are caught and destroyed before coins ever leave the mint, history proves that some escape, and when they do, they can become some of the most valuable objects in the hobby. And one of the most powerful error categories associated with the 2003 P5 cent is the double die error, which is fundamentally different from simple wear or mechanical doubling, because a true double die is created during the die-making process itself, when the design hub impresses the image onto the die more than once at slightly different angles, resulting in strong, rounded, and clearly separated doubling that becomes part of the coin's DNA. And if a 2003 P5 cent were struck from a dramatically double die affecting Jefferson's portrait, the inscriptions, the date, or Monticello on the reverse, and especially if that doubling were bold enough to be seen with the naked eye, it could instantly place that coin into elite error territory, and the value would rise exponentially if such a variety were unknown, undocumented, and limited to an extremely small number of surviving examples, because rarity multiplied by visibility creates intense collector competition. And beyond double dies, planchet errors form another cornerstone of the $11 million theory, because before a coin is ever struck, the blank planchet must meet exact specifications for weight, thickness, diameter, and metal composition, and if something goes wrong during rolling, cutting, annealing, or sorting, the wrong planchet can sometimes enter the striking chamber. And while such events are rare in modern minting, they are not impossible, as proven by documented cases of coins struck on wrong denomination planchets, foreign blanks, or leftover experimental metals. And for the 2003 P5 cent, the most dramatic possibility would be an off-metal strike, such as a nickel struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or an unusual alloy, creating immediate differences in weight, color, edge appearance, sound, and magnetic response. And if such a coin were authenticated and shown to be unique or nearly unique, its value could reach staggering heights, especially if the metal composition revealed something undocumented in official mint records, because collectors place enormous value on coins that expose unknown chapters of mint history. And then there are striking errors, which occur at the moment the dies strike the planchet, and these include off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, broad strikes where the retaining collar fails and the coin spreads outward, multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once in misaligned positions, and dramatic struck-through errors where grease, debris, or foreign material interferes with the strike, leaving portions of the design missing or distorted. And while small examples of these errors are relatively common and modestly priced, an extreme and visually breathtaking strike error on a 2003 P5 cent could command extraordinary attention, especially if it clearly demonstrates a rare mechanical failure and produces a coin that looks unmistakably wrong even to the untrained eye. And visual impact is a major driver of value, because collectors are drawn to coins that tell their story instantly. And then there is the tantalizing theoretical possibility of mule errors, which occur when obverse and reverse dies from different coins are accidentally paired together, creating a hybrid that was never intended to exist. And while no confirmed mule involving a 2003 P5 cent has been officially recognized, the existence of other modern mules proves that such mistakes can happen. And if such a coin were discovered, it would instantly become one of the most talked about modern rarities in existence, because mule coins represent a complete breakdown in mint procedure. And beyond these headline-grabbing errors, there are die varieties and progressive die failures that can dramatically affect a coin's appearance, including massive die cracks, retained cuds where part of the die breaks but remains attached, full cuds where part of the design disappears entirely, and clash marks where the dies strike each other without a planchet, transferring parts of one design onto the other. And while minor die cracks are common, a large and dramatic cut that alters Jefferson's portrait or Monticello in a bold and unmistakable way can be incredibly rare, particularly if it occurs late in a die's life and only a small number of coins are struck before the die is removed. And transitional possibilities add another layer of intrigue, because transitional errors occur when materials, designs, or processes overlap, and while the basic composition of the nickel remained stable in 2003, changes in tooling, engraving methods, or internal mint logistics could theoretically result in undocumented anomalies. And history shows that some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were unknown for decades simply because no one realized they were different at the time, and condition plays an enormous role in transforming rarity into extreme value, because even the rarest error loses much of its potential if heavily worn or damaged, while a pristine mint-state example with original luster, sharp details, and no post-mint damage can multiply value many times over, and this is especially true for modern coins, where high-grade survivors are far scarcer than people assume due to circulation and handling. And authentication is the final and most critical step, because extraordinary value claims require extraordinary proof, and any 2003 P5 cent believed to approach $11 million would need to undergo exhaustive examination by top-tier grading services using precise weight measurements, metallurgical testing, die study comparisons, and microscopic analysis to rule out alteration, damage, or counterfeit creation, because the higher the potential value, the more intense the scrutiny becomes. And the idea of an $11 million nickel is not presented as a promise but as a theoretical ceiling, a point where extreme rarity, dramatic error combinations, perfect preservation, historical intrigue, and intense collector competition collide, because value in numismatics is ultimately shaped by human fascination, storytelling, and desire, and when a coin becomes famous, debated, photographed, written about, and showcased, it gains an aura that goes beyond metal and design, transforming it into a cultural artifact. And for everyone watching, the deeper message is that modern coins are not boring, not fully explored, and not immune to mystery, because even in an age of advanced automation and precision engineering, human oversight, machine wear, and process complexity can still produce astonishing results, and while the odds of discovering such a legendary 2003 P5 cent are incredibly small, the excitement lies in the possibility. The reminder that hidden treasures are not limited to ancient times or precious metals, but can exist quietly in modern change, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely, learn the signs, and ask the right questions, because every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story is about perfection, but sometimes it is about mistakes, accidents, and rare moments when the system failed just enough to create something extraordinary. Last 1997 D5 cent, today on the channel where hidden treasures, unbelievable discoveries, and jaw-dropping coin stories come to life, and today you're about to hear one of the most fascinating and controversial stories in modern American numismatics, a story that has collectors checking their pockets, digging through old jars, and re-examining coins they once ignored. Because this is the incredible tale of the 1997 D5 cent coin, a simple nickel at first glance, yet a coin that under very rare circumstances has been whispered about as being worth as much as $10 million due to a perfect storm of minting errors, production mistakes, overlooked anomalies, and extraordinary possibilities that transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a legendary object of desire. And to understand why this coin captures so much attention, we need to step back into the late 1990s when the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of nickels every year, churning them out at facilities like the Denver Mint, marked with the small but powerful D mint mark, a mint that prided itself on efficiency and volume. Yet even in such controlled environments errors happen, and sometimes those errors escape unnoticed, slipping quietly into circulation where they remain hidden for decades, and the 1997 D nickel exists at the center of these stories. Because while most examples are worth only face value, collectors and experts believe that a handful of extraordinary error specimens may exist that combine multiple rare characteristics into a single coin, and it is this convergence of errors that fuels the idea of extreme valuation, because in the world of coin collecting, value is not created by age alone but by rarity, condition, demand, and uniqueness, and when all four align the results can be staggering. Starting with the most discussed possibility surrounding the 1997 5 cent, the idea of a wrong planchet error, where the coin was struck on a metal blank. Never intended for a Jefferson nickel, such as a planchet meant for a different denomination or even a foreign coin, and if a 1997 nickel were struck on an experimental alloy, an improperly mixed composition, or a transitional planchet from another series, the resulting weight, color, and metallic signature would immediately stand out under scientific analysis. And wrong planchet errors are already among the most valuable in numismatics, but when paired with the Denver mint mark and a year not widely known for such mistakes, the rarity multiplies exponentially. Then there is the possibility of a dramatic off-metal strike combined with a double die obverse or reverse, meaning the design itself was misaligned during the hubbing process, causing doubling in inscriptions like Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, the date, or even the portrait of Thomas Jefferson. And while minor doubling is common, true hub doubling is extremely rare, especially when bold, crisp, and visible without magnification. And a 1997 nickel displaying heavy double dies on both sides would instantly become a headline piece, but the story does not stop there, because some specialists speculate about the existence of a full brockage error from this year and mint, where one coin became stuck in the press and impressed its mirrored image onto the next blank, creating a ghostly, incused design that defies normal minting logic. And such errors are breathtaking on their own, but when combined with other anomalies they cross into the realm of museum-level artifacts. And then there is the mysterious talk of missing or malformed mint marks, because although the D mint mark is punched into the die itself for this era, there have been cases where grease-filled dies, die deterioration, or catastrophic die damage resulted in mint marks that appear weak, distorted, partially missing, or strangely shaped. And collectors know that genuine missing mint marks from years when mint marks were not added by hand are impossible. But mint mark anomalies are very real, and when paired with additional errors they create complex varieties that defy easy categorization, and complexity in numismatics often equals value, because it limits supply while increasing scholarly interest. Another layer of intrigue comes from the possibility of a major die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, transferring elements of each design onto the opposite die, and if those clash marks were strong and then used to strike coins before being polished away, the resulting nickels would show ghost images of Monticello on Jefferson's face or parts of Jefferson's profile bleeding into the reverse, creating a surreal visual effect that instantly captures attention. And if such a clash occurred late in the die's life, the combination of clash marks, die cracks, and flow lines would tell a story frozen in metal, a story of stress, fatigue, and failure inside the minting process. And it is these narrative qualities that elevate certain coins beyond collectibles into historical documents. And speaking of die cracks, some of the most valuable error coins ever sold feature dramatic retained cud breaks or shattered dies, where chunks of the die broke away, leaving raised blobs, missing design elements, or distorted fields. And while small cracks are common, massive retained cuds that alter the coin's appearance are rare. And a 1997 nickel with a huge retained cud spanning Jefferson's portrait or consuming part of Monticello would be instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. And then comes the subject of strike quality, because a coin struck with extreme pressure can display radial metal flow, expanded rims, and unusually sharp details. And when combined with misalignment or rotation errors, where the obverse and reverse are not properly oriented, the result is a coin that challenges conventional grading standards, and grading itself plays a monumental role in the hypothetical $10 million valuation, because a coin must not only be rare but also authenticated, certified, and preserved in exceptional condition. And imagine an error-laden 1997 nickel that somehow avoided circulation damage, remaining in near-perfect mint state, with blazing luster, intact surfaces, and eye appeal that rivals proof coins. Such a piece would be almost mythical, because error coins often suffer damage that lowers their grade, yet perfection amplifies rarity, and rarity amplifies value, and the valuation leaps further when provenance enters the picture, because if such a coin were discovered in an original mint bag, a sealed roll, or a documented estate collection linked to mint employees or long-term hoarders, the story becomes verifiable, traceable, and far more compelling to elite collectors, museums, and investors. And this is where the $10 million figure, while sensational, begins to make sense in theoretical terms, because at that level the buyer is not purchasing metal, they are purchasing exclusivity, historical significance, and the right to own something no one else can, and history has shown that collectors will pay astonishing sums for singular objects, from rare stamps to misprinted currency to unique coins, and the psychology of collecting plays a crucial role, because human desire intensifies around scarcity and narrative. And the 1997 D nickel narrative is powerful precisely because it hides in plain sight. A modern coin most people overlook, making the idea that a life-changing treasure could still be waiting to be found deeply compelling, and this fuels constant searching, roll hunting, and examination, keeping demand alive even without confirmed public sales at that price level, and demand itself creates value potential, especially when combined with speculation, and speculation thrives on possibility. And possibility thrives on mystery, and mystery is abundant when discussing mint errors that may exist but have not yet surfaced publicly, and beyond physical errors there is also discussion of experimental strikes, because the late 1990s were a period of testing and evaluation for alloys, dye technologies, and production efficiencies, and while most experiments were controlled, history proves that experimental pieces occasionally escaped, intentionally or not, and if a 1997 D nickel were struck using an undocumented alloy blend or experimental dye treatment, metallurgical analysis would reveal anomalies in composition, density, or magnetic properties, and such findings would instantly elevate the coin into uncharted territory, because undocumented mint experiments are among the rarest numismatic objects in existence. And then there is the matter of population reports, because even one confirmed example changes everything. And the absence of known examples does not disprove existence, it merely preserves mystery, and mystery keeps the story alive, and alive stories keep markets interested, and this is why so many collectors carefully examine the date, mint mark, weight, alignment, edge, sound, and strike of every 1997 D nickel they encounter, knowing that the difference between 5 cents and a fortune lies in microns of metal and moments of mechanical failure inside a mint press decades ago. And the journey from pocket change to priceless artifact is not instant but layered, requiring authentication by top grading services, expert analysis, peer review, and time.